3 missing FLDS boys have now been found. But is this the end or just the beginning of their journey home to their mother?
It sounds so simple, right? Find the boys, take them back to their mother, and live happily ever after. But in the FLDS religion, their choice to stay hidden and separate from the world is what they believe will get them back to God.
Today, we're going to show you the breaking news, body cam footage of the officers who actually found the boys, and what it might mean for their future.
Stay tuned as I share insider thoughts on how the lives of these boys will be changed forever, and if I believe that they will be able to overcome the fear they were raised with. Let's dive in. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Sam.
And I'm Melissa.
I was raised in a family with 4 moms and 35 kids. We were members of the FLDS Church, which is a polygamous group run by their prophet Warren Jeffs, who is now serving a life sentence in prison.
I was raised mainstream LDS in Utah. Sam and I have been married for 10 years. 5 years into our marriage, we decided to step away from the mainstream LDS church with our family, and we have 2 beautiful, awesome kiddos.
Yes, we do. We want to quickly thank our donors, YouTube members, patrons on Patreon, and all of our wonderful subscribers. We have this big goal of reaching 100,000 subscribers by the end of this year, so if you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe.
We also have about a week and a half left of our holiday fundraiser for Holding Out Help. They are an organization that helps people who leave polygamous communities. I know this family that found these boys, they are in touch with as well. They help give resources and tools for people to be able to go from isolation to independence.
Yeah.
So please, 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 this fundraiser is going to be wrapping up here soon in the next couple weeks. So if you feel inclined, the donation button is below.
Thank you all so much for your donations, and yes, we love this organization, so thank you all so much for being a part of this big cause.
Yes, today we are so excited to announce that 3 missing boys we had covered before. We covered a news story. I will leave the link above if you did not see this, but now for 2 years, there were 3 boys that had been missing. And we had talked about this before, but since there are still children that are missing, we want to reiterate that with these FLDS boys and children in general, because not all of them are boys, it's a very complicated situation because a lot of them are being declared runaways when really they're being taken by family members that are still within the FLDS community, being taken back and hidden by living with other either family members or just other people within the FLDS church and being hidden from their mothers or the people that have received custody of them. Most of the time it ends up being their mothers.
Yeah, it's as simple as if someone within the FLDS church that used to claim to believe in and follow Warren Jeffs, like I myself did at one point, if they decide that they no longer want to put up with the nonsense that is his current revelations and things that he is writing to his followers from his prison cell, and some of the things that are starting to get really, really complicated and scary, if they decide no more to that, then the church, believing, Warren Jeffs specifically, and his close followers, believing that everything that you own is because of the church and therefore belongs to the church, even your children. If you decide to leave and step away, in this case, a mother steps away from the church, those children are taken away from her, from the church, and put into different homes, hidden wherever throughout the country, trying to keep them from being able to return to their mother. And during this time that they're being hidden, they're being brainwashed, if you want to call it that, or being told that their mother is now, in a way, working for Satan because she has chosen to go against the church. And therefore, if they choose to go back to her, they're taught that they will also be miserable and working for Satan as well. So it's a very, very complicated and touchy situation.
And it's one of those things where technically they're being kidnapped because they're being taken away from the custody of their mother. And also, it's hard to save children who don't realize the full dangers of the religious community that they're in, right? Mm-hmm. So most of the time when police officers, go and they save children out of harmful situations, kids are so happy to be saved out of those. In the case of the FLDS children, something that's heartbreaking is they either don't realize and they don't want to be saved because they believe they're doing what God wants them to do. And so when police or law enforcement's looking for them, they're not reaching out for help and trying to find help. They're helping their captors, basically. They're helping trying to stay hid because they don't want to go back. Or they don't realize the opportunities because there is that brainwashing aspect of it, right?
Well, yeah, and they just don't know any better. They are kept in this bubble. I will speak for myself. I was very much set apart from the world and taken away from a lot of the things that you would hear and see living amongst I guess, normal society. And so when I actually was introduced to the outside world, it was scary, and a lot of things that I just wasn't familiar with. So they're kept away from the world, and they're being taught that the outside world, not just those that choose to leave the church, but all outsiders in some way or another, could harm them and could cause them to do something against God's will. So whether it is an apostate, as they would call someone that leaves the church, or just a law enforcement member that is coming to try to help them, as of course they would like to, in the minds of the children, they're coming to try to do some type of harm to them and their family and the church.
And it's so heartbreaking. We've talked to this mother over the course of these 2 years that her children have been missing. And it's so heartbreaking because these mothers that choose to take their children away from this community, they've been raised in it and indoctrinated their entire lives. For them to take that step and have the courage to leave and take their children to begin with is a huge deal. It's a huge deal, and it's so hard. They're losing family. They're losing community. They're losing so much. And 9 times out of 10, the reason they're doing it is for the sake of their children. They're doing it because they don't want that life for their kids. So for them to leave, go through everything they go through to be able to take their kids to what they believe will be safety and a safer and better life, and then to have their children taken and put back in that dangerous situation they were trying to get away from, was just so heartbreaking. It is so heartbreaking. But we also want to talk about not only, like, we're going to show the newscast and the body cam footage so you can see what it takes to get these children back to their mothers. And then we'll talk a little bit about the process of leaving the community, or what it's going to be like for these boys moving forward, because this isn't the end of their journey. They're not just happily ever after back with their mom.
Yes, well, for some of the reasons we just mentioned, that they're afraid. They're scared out of their minds on what's about to happen next. I want to make clear that in a lot of cases, if not most, and probably all, they were separated from their children before they stopped believing in Warren Jeffs as a prophet and as almost like a godlike figure, that if they went against his will, they were going against God, and God would punish them, smite them, destroy them in some way. So these moms are terrified to do anything wrong. It's later that they then have decided to step away from the church after they had had enough from being separated from their children, from being separated from the community, to being sent off somewhere strange to repent of something that sometimes they didn't even know what it was. It's at that point that they decide, no, I'm done with this. I want my children back. And so they've already been separated, and there's been that time for the church to indoctrinate these kids to, in some way or another, go against their mother, and that's why it's so complicated to get them back and reunited.
And then they go through all of that, right, of having to be separated from their children by the church, and they decide they've had enough, and a lot of them fight in legal custody battles to get their children to be able to have custody over them to begin with. And then things like this happen where they're kidnapped or they're taken by family members back into the community. So you make a good point in that this isn't the beginning of their struggle is, oh, my kids were taken away from, by the church after I left with them. There's cases like that where the moms just are able to leave with their kids, but that's pretty rare.
Right.
Most of the time, they've been separated beforehand. There's repentance process. There's all these other things. They finally get custody of their kids. And then you have cases like this where then they get taken back away and kidnapped or moved into hiding to be able to have their kids be part of the FLDS. So it's so complicated. It's so messy. It's so heartbreaking for these mothers because of everything they've been through to finally get their kids with them. And then this can happen.
Yeah.
And this is just the beginning, getting them back. So we want to show you some of these news clips and let you guys see. And this was happened about a month ago, right? I believe it happened end of November is when these boys were found.
When they found them. So we'll show you just kind of some a quick news clip talking about the situation and then some body cam footage as well.
3 Utah children are back with their mother after disappearing 2 years ago. They went missing October 2022 in Beaver County. Police found them in Fredonia, a small town in northern Arizona.
Okay, so Fredonia That's near Short Creek, isn't it?
Yes, it's very, very close. It's a short drive to Short Creek. And I know for a fact some of my own family and a lot of other FLDS members have moved to Fredonia area after Warren Jeffs has been put in prison, and some of them have been told to leave. Yeah.
Is that just because it's just right across the Utah state line? Does that make it harder for people to track down once it goes across state lines? Or do you think the fact that they were so close to Short Creek this whole time, when they had a feeling that the FLDS were involved, should they have looked there sooner?
Yeah, well, Fredonia's in Arizona, actually.
Okay.
But yes, I don't know why, because you see some of the FLDS members that moved to Fredonia, Kanab area, and then you have other ones that moved the other direction up further north to Cedar City, Utah, and then you have other ones in North Dakota and, Missouri, and they're kind of scattered all over. So I don't know. I think the primary reason that they have so many locations is because when things like this happen and law enforcement is looking for these kids, they have a lot of options when it comes to putting them in some of their hideaway homes.
Officers there believe the children's father orchestrated their disappearance and hiding with the help of members of the fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
This is something that we had talked about before in the first video about these kids going missing in the first place. They kept being called runaways because when the mother would, and this is multiple mothers, there are still kids missing out there.
Yes.
But when the moms call law enforcement and they say, my boys are missing, then they go to the father, and then the father says, I don't know where they are. They must not have been happy with their mother. They must have run away. And if they're not in the custody of their father at that time, then they're labeled a runaway, instead of the fact that their father helped them leave. So the fact that the law enforcement is pretty sure it was the father as well.
Yeah.
We kind of knew that from the beginning, but it's good for law enforcement to know that as well.
Yes. In a lot of cases, either it's the father that left or the mother that left the church, and then the other spouse is the one, the other parent is the one helping the church hide these children away in some way. Not always, though. Sometimes the church takes these kids completely away from both parents and hides them.
Police arrested the children's grandmother and aunt. We're told they were watching the kids while they were with the FLDS group. Police have not tracked down the father just yet.
And that's another thing. In this case, the fact that the kids were at least with their grandmother and aunt, that is good in some ways, because hopefully they're being treated better being with the hands of family members than they would with others. We know, like the Black family, where their kids were placed with extended family and were horribly abused. Yeah. So hopefully these boys were at least in good care. However, we do know that no matter what, if they're within members of the FLDS church homes, that they are going to be taught that their mother is evil, and they're going to be taught how important it is for them not to ever go back to their mother.
Right. And some might even wonder, okay, why though? Why is the church determined to keep these kids away? Well, of course, the church would tell you, or at least Warren Jeffs and his close followers would tell you, well, it's their salvation on the line, right? That's what they're going to say. They're going to say, well, we're just trying to help these kids return to God, and it's our duty, since they were raised in the church, that we help them do that. But on the other side of things, we have seen and heard from many, many people that have been involved in these types of situations that the church is using these people for labor, child labor in a lot of cases. And then some of the young girls are being married off. We've heard that marriages are starting up again. And so that type of thing is another reason why it's so terrifying that these mothers just aren't aware of what is going on in these children's lives.
Yeah. We wanted to show you guys the body cam footage because there's a couple interesting points that we've kind of already talked about a little bit, but just the process of getting these kids home. They do not believe that they're victims. They don't necessarily believe or are wanting to be found. So we wanted to show this body cam footage to kind of put that into perspective of what it looks like to get these boys, especially when they've been indoctrinated and hidden for 2 years.
Yeah.
Sheriff's Department. Sheriff's Department.
Come here. We got to open the door. Come on out, guys. Come on. Let's calm down. Don't resist. Calm down, kiddo.
Again, you can see like the police are basically having to go and try to find these kids by gunpoint. We've heard stories of kids hiding in cupboards, being told, like, you're going to have to come in and find them in order to take them back to their parents.
Yeah, it looked like one of the boys tried to run out the door there.
Yeah.
I cannot even begin to explain how terrifying this is for these young boys, because they're just trying. Well, and of course the women involved too, but they're just trying to do what the church asks them to do.
Yeah, and can you imagine, again, these police officers know they're getting these boys back to their mom. They know the whole circumstance, and these boys are having guns pointed at them. Normally, when police officers go in to raid something and save children, the children are safe and they're pointing guns at the bad guys.
Right.
And in this case, they're pointing the guns at these poor boys.
These boys are so young too. They're
Just teenagers.
So young. Oh man.
It's a blind corner.
And this reiterates all the fears that you guys were taught your entire life, right?
Yeah.
Like, you were told that the police would come and try to destroy you.
Yeah. Yeah. This, I was, as a young boy, this would have been the ultimate, most horrific, terrifying thing I could have possibly endured.
Yeah.
This was my nightmare. This right here was my nightmare. That would wake me up in the middle of the night, panting and sweating and crying, because of the way that I was raised to believe that law enforcement is against us. They would come, if given any chance or opportunity, they would come and try to rip me apart from my family, tear me apart, and cause problems for the church. Now, granted, I know this is a unique situation because these boys have already been torn apart from their family. Their mother is no longer with them.
And they're not living with their father either, right? Because they have to be in hiding.
So I know for them it is very, very different, because for me in my young age, I was still with both of my parents. Very different. I do understand that. But at the same time, the similar teachings about law enforcement and the outside world, just seeing them show up that way would have just been terrifying. It didn't show their faces, but I can only imagine the terror that was shown on their faces.
Well, it would be terrifying for any child. Like,
Yeah.
and these boys are just teenagers, young teenagers.
Yeah.
Were you ever taught what to do? Like, was there certain things like you were told to do if somebody was to ever raid your house?
Show us your hands.
Well, not necessarily. It was, we were taught to, oh my, you see the mom was kind of hiding in the blankets there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't see that coming. I
Yeah.
haven't seen this whole video all the way through, so I wanted to have a raw reaction. But yeah, so I had a plan of where I would hide. I don't remember my parents telling me a specific location, but I had plans of where I would run and hide. More than anything, it was just try to stay away from outsiders. So if you're riding a bike down the middle of town or something and someone comes towards you, you just get out. You stay hidden, you stay away, you don't talk to them. So, that was the idea.
Well, in this case, I mean, the women were literally, I think looks like a grandmother, or I don't know if that's the grandmother or the aunt, but I mean, hiding under blankets, hoping that the police aren't going to search the rest of the place.
Yeah.
Hands up. Do you have any weapons on you? Moving in. Check on the bed. Get up. Show us your hands.
Oh my word.
Another one.
Stand up. Out of
So the adults were trying to just
Out of the
hide.
bed.
So even though the boys had already been caught at this point, the adults, instead of trying to help or protect them, if they actually thought they were in danger, they're just hiding under the blankets. Wow, that goes to show their priorities.
She said, you know our people, we're not violent, so why are you doing this?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I have to say, her saying, like, our people, we're not a violent people. I feel like growing up outside of Short Creek in St. George, that was definitely something that I felt like was just kind of understood. Like, oh, they're just living their lives. They're not hurting anybody. So we should just leave them alone. They're not hurting anybody. And we had no idea the abuses and the things that were happening like right next door to us.
You want to know something crazy?
Yeah.
Growing up in it, I thought the same thing. The things that were happening, the illegal things that were, well, I guess polygamy by itself is illegal. So that was very clear throughout the church. But there were a lot of things happening under Warren Jeffs that were harmful to kids, that were breaking apart families, that were doing all of these things that has gotten police departments after them that I wasn't even aware about. So even being a member of the church, like this girl here, she may know a lot, but she may be in the dark.
Yeah.
It's hard to know, and I don't know how old she is. Maybe she's an adult here. This might be the aunt that they have, but girl or woman, I'm not sure. But either way, she may not know very much about what's actually going on. She
In
may
her
just be,
mind.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
She may just be, hey, you need to go help these children because that's what Warren Jeffs and God wants you to do.
That's what I was just going to say. She might just think that she's just helping to save her nephews if she's
Right.
the aunt, right?
Yeah.
And we saw from the original broadcast that the grandmother and the aunt were arrested, and they are still, they still think the father was involved, but I believe he is in prison. The father's in prison.
The father of the boy is in prison now.
So, and yeah, man, it's just so heartbreaking. We're so glad that they were found, that they can be returned to their mother, because there are some scary revelations. I will leave a link above for some of the scary revelations that Warren Jeffs has come out with that would not only be hurting children, but all members of the church.
Yeah.
Talking about the end of the world coming up in a couple of years and the things that are going to happen to those people. And so it is a scary time to have family members in the FLDS. And so I'm grateful these boys are back. But we also wanted to talk a second about the reality of when these boys go back. Because again, as you saw, these boys had to be taken out by gunpoint, some of them handcuffed, in order to be returned back to the regular world with their mother who loves them.
Yeah.
The indoctrination that must have happened over those 2 years, what is that going to look like for them now leaving and being forced into the regular world?
Yeah, so it's going to be, their difficult journey is far, far from over. My hope, and we know the mom that it showed there briefly, and been able to talk to her and just share some of the pain that she was feeling during that time. And we're so grateful that she's been reunited with her boys. But at the same time, the journey of trust, being able to trust one another, to get her boys to feel welcome in her home and to look at her as a good person instead of this evil person that the church has painted her to be, is a long, long journey. I mean, we've heard of instances where children were returned to be with their parents, and they just made that parent's life very difficult, even to the point of destroying some things, constantly trying to run away and get back to the church because they are fully indoctrinated at this point and believing that the only way back to God is through the FLDS church.
Yeah. It's so sad. Our hearts go out to this family. We hope that things are transitioning as smoothly as possible. Again, I know I mentioned at the beginning, but Holding Out Help gives amazing resources, therapy, all sorts of tools for even kids like this who are coming back from the FLDS, being brought back to the real world and trying to understand and helping them through the things that they've been through. So we have a donation button below for our Christmas fundraiser for Holding Out Help. That organization helps so many families like this be able to get the help they need and to help young children get the help they need to adjust to being in the real world.
Yes, it's very, very important that all of these people in the situation get the help they need. So thank you all so much for your support and just being here and listening. And thank you for being here with us. We look forward to talking with you soon.
Talk to y'all soon.